I get the sense in talking to a lot of new comedy writers that there are quite a few out there who want to try it but feel self conscious about English not being their first language. If that's you, let me encourage you to put those thoughts aside and do it anyway. Comedy is bigger than language, and it will be better with more people in it, sharing all their different perspectives. 99% of native English speakers are doing everything wrong. In fact, your biggest problem will be trying to stop yourself correcting people who have spoken the language every day of their lives. In a way, that's kind of good. English belongs to the world now. The valuable part of your comedy is your life experience. Language is just one part of a delivery method. Luckily, there's someone from our Discord channel who is doing comedy in English, Spanish, and French. His name is Alvaro Salvano, and he agreed to have a chat about what it's like to be a trilingual comic. So I asked you to do this because my impression is that some people who are looking at the Comedy Zola channel are learning to do comedy but are not native English speakers, and they're looking at English as kind of like if I want to be taken seriously, I'm going to have to move into English.
Right.
And what I would most like to say to them is, even if your English is not perfect, just please come on in because
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with that. I think sometimes when I hear I myself have an accent, but like when I hear a comic do comedy in English with an accent, I'm kind of like interested because I want to know where they're from. I want to know how's their English learning. Like it comes with a lot of like questions that I want to know answers about. And if you're funny, you're funny, and as long as you're being understood, but there's always like ways around it. There's a local comic that does a lot of prop work, and I run a Spanish show, and he doesn't speak Spanish, but he just presents the props and does like little jokes. So he just researched, like Google translated what the words are, and it was just killer because he was just like pollo, like he just didn't know how to say chicken, but like and then he did his bit, and it was just funny, so it shouldn't be a limitation. I think it should be like something that you're proud of, and you present yourself as you are, and that's part of who you are. So it just makes it more interesting. Like we're all different, and that's part of the difference, right?
So, what am I right about the sort of the mindset of somebody did you start doing comedy in Spanish and then move to English, or were you learning English anyway, or how does that work?
Well, I've lived in Canada for 20 years, right? So like I learned well, my native language is Spanish. I was born in Uruguay, so I spoke Spanish my whole life. Then when I immigrated to Canada in 2002, I learned French first.
Oh, wow.
And via like just watching shows and being interested in movies and having an Anglophone girlfriend for like 5 years, I had no choice but to learn English. And here, the scene, how it is there's a lot of mics, open mics, like show up, go up in English. So you can do a lot of spots in Montreal in English. You can also do it in French, but it's a little bit harder to get spots in French, even on open mics, because they're all booked. So my game plan was really I'll use English because I need the stage time and I need to learn and I need to do it as much as I can. And when I get a little bit better, I'll do French. But I started doing French as soon as someone knew that I spoke French, and they were like, "Oh, come to my show," and like I just started doing it as much as I could. But stage time is stage time, so I just do it in every language that I have. I have to leverage that, and it just gives me more spots, more stage time, more opportunities, and it grows my comedy circle also because now I know the Latino comics in Montreal, I know the French scene, I know the English scene, and sometimes they meet and sometimes they don't, so like I just do it as much as I can in Dan.
Who's a good boy? Who's a good baby? Sit.
You really get a lot of laughs. I mean, we just saw you just shared a video this morning.
Yeah.
You're really doing a good job of of keeping the crowd going, and I think that's got to be a result of, like you said, just getting as much time as you can.
Absolutely, yeah. And the crowds are different, right? So in I don't know if you know how it is here a little bit, but there's like conflict between Anglos and French,
Yeah, my
the
wife and I
French
were just
culture.
talking about that. Yeah, yeah.
So the crowds are very different, right? In Quebec, there's one of the big cultural things that we do is comedy. So comedy in French is like revered. Comics here are rock stars, So when I do a show in French, the crowd is there to laugh, like or any I'm just talking about like French comedy in general. Whereas in English, the crowd is there, but sometimes you don't know exactly if you're there to laugh. Like there's a saying that people say, it's like when you go to a comedy show in French, people are like, I'm here to laugh. In English, it's let's see if you can make me laugh. It's more like defiant, Yeah, it's like that.
I use that
Um,
gesture all the time to talk about comedy people because like, when you tell people that you started doing comedy, they're like, "Oh, really? What's your first joke?" And I'm like, "Do like do not say a joke," because in
yeah.
their mind they're like, "We'll see." And like that it's so funny that there's that difference between English and the French Canadians, but please continue.
Yeah, no, what you're saying is absolutely true because now when people like I meet new people, I tell my friends, don't tell them I do comedy. Because then suddenly they become defiant a little bit, and I become the least funny person in the room by the fact that I'm not like doing comedy, like they expect me to be funny. I'm like, I just want to hang out. I'm not
Right.
doing my act. Yeah, I mean, French, all crowds are different, right? Like even in English, I find like all crowds are different depending on the type of show. But I did comedy in Montreal a lot, then in Gatineau, Ottawa, but also like in Colombia and Mexico, right? In Spanish. And it's so different there too, right? It's a third type of like, I was talking about this, and Colombia is like it's fighting a little bit. It's like they're
Wow.
funny too. The crowd is funny, so they want to laugh with you. They're like they want to be part of the show a lot more. So it's you got to deal with that. So you got to learn how to perform for each different type of crowd, really. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that kind of that makes some sense because when I just watched the video this morning, I was saying like I was kind of struck by how much you allow the crowd to be part of the show, whereas you know
Yeah.
I'm like, shut up, I'm talking. I don't,
I
and I don't want to bring the temperature down by being too much of a dick to people, but I also feel like if you let them start talking, then you'll be fighting it forever. But do you think that experience with Spanish speaking crowds has made you more comfortable?
Yes, absolutely. And I know what you're saying. Like you should do your material when you're there, and you're not there to do like crowd work wherever. But like I'm not like I'm talking to them, but I'm also cheating. Like I talk to them, and then I'm like, "Oh, you're a teacher. Here's my teacher bits."
Right. Yeah.
Like it's like fake. I'm not really talking to them, and like if because this is something that happened to me one time. I was doing an open mic, and I went on with my notes, and this lady started yelling at me, and she was like, "You're cheating." You're cheating because all the comics didn't go up with notes, and I went out with notes because I wanted to try new jokes, and I couldn't remember them. And I got pissed. I was like, shut up. Like this was like when I first started, like I wasn't nice. And then the booker took me aside and he was like, that doesn't work for you. It doesn't look like you're having fun. Like be with them, have fun with them. And then that changed like my mindset about it. And it's like the act doesn't matter. If I'm up there for 5, 10, 12 minutes and I'm making them laugh and I don't get my jokes out, people are having fun. And that's what really matters to me. And in Colombia, I learned it the hard way, man. Like I remember the first show I did in Colombia, I just tried to do my act and people kept interrupting. Like I would do a premise, right? So I go premise and they would go, let's hear it. It's like, that's what I'm doing. Let me finish. You know? That's what I'm
It's
doing.
funny.
And then I was like, okay, no, this is not how it's not gonna work for me here like that. I need to just be a real dude. I can't present as like a higher status, like I'm performing, I'm the performer, you are the no, we're gonna have fun together. Um and you say that about you want to hear the material, so like stop talking to the crowd. And I get it. I totally get it. And I try to do that. but also I also get compliments on the other way where it's like, oh man, I really like your vibe. It looks like you don't like you're loose, you don't care. And I want to show up as myself, you know. I want to show up as myself and be like the way I think of it is like you know when there's a group of friends and they're talking and they're having fun and you're like you come in and you want to match their energy level. That's what I try to do with the crowd. Like I want to match, I want to be the guy that comes in and because I'm the comic in this context, I have to drive the fun. I have to like drive the comedy in it. But to me, it's just that you go into a group of people that you don't know, you have to get them to like you, and you have to make them laugh. And you do whatever you can, I guess, you know. But maybe I'm doing it wrong, you know. Who knows?
Well, you're not because you get a
Yeah.
lot of laughs. So that,
Thanks, man.
like, I mean, like they're, it's so stupid to talk about laughs per minute, but like, as I'm watching you perform, it's like laugh, pause, laugh, and so it sounds like what you're saying is I should let go of my ego and maybe do what I'm there to do, which is help people have a good time.
Yeah. Well, to be clear, I'm not letting go of my ego at all, you know. Like it's all I just do it because I want my ego to be fed. I want them to
Right, right.
laugh. I want to feel good, you know. So yeah.
If you don't mind, I'd like to circle back a little bit to the you were talking about Anglos versus Quebecois. Like what how do you I don't know how did you sort of discover that that element exists, and I'm just interested in hearing more about it.
Which aspect of it, you mean?
Well, I guess like what it means on the ground, like because I've heard from my other French Canadian friends that like if if a room full of people are speaking French and one person switches to English, they all switch to English.
Yeah.
Like uh
Yeah, that's a bit of a complex that French Canadians have. You know, it's like there's conflict, you know, there's tension there. And what I discovered is that because the thing in Montreal is that it's kind of hard sometimes because you might go into a crowd at a French show and a girl will bring her boyfriend and he only speaks English, right? Or like a group of friends will bring two friends, they only speak English. So then you're acting French and you're alienating the person that they're never gonna laugh. And they're sitting in front and it gets to you, you know? So you're gonna like play around with that, you know, or like do jokes that someone that understands basic French can understand, you know? Um, in French, the thing is like shows are more often than not packed. Even like the worst open mics, you get like 20 people minimum in them, you know? So and they're there to laugh. So it's a good experience in that sense. And they love it. So you gotta play it a little bit bigger as well than in English. In English, I feel like it's more like they expect more of like a New York style or LA style comedy. Whereas in French, I think there's a lot more freedom in the way people perform. For instance, like you'll have more prop comics, which like
huh.
if you did it in English, you would get shot. You know, like people would, you know, like
I mean,
it's
yeah.
true.
There's pretty
It's
it's
like
like it's Carrot Top and that's it.
it's hack, right?
Right.
But in French, like they'll use a PowerPoint. They'll use like they'll come dressed up as a character and stuff, you know. And I was talking about this with my friend Jason Hool, and we were just talking about like, oh, because in English we're more pure, you know, we're more like we try to do more pure stand up. And I was like, yeah, but in French, in a way, it's more pure because it's just about being funny. Isn't that the thing in the end? Like you're going on stage and just trying to make people laugh and have a good time. So there's, I don't know what is the purest way to do it, but if people are laughing in the end, they don't care that you brought in like a prop or something. They just care that you had fun and that you were funny. That's it. You know,
It's so
it's
funny
different.
that like like to hear like I mean I can totally see that like when you're sort of emulating American comics, it's like a big personality and like their whole thing is I don't care and like and that sort of feeds into the like you can't say anything anymore sort of dynamic of like I don't care, I'm this modern day truth teller kind of thing. Like what you're describing in the French scene to me sounds joyful. Like I'm ready to get on a plane and come. It reminds me of
Yeah.
like hearing people talk about like Edinburgh Fringe and stuff, like where
Yes,
you just do
exactly.
anything, and if people are enjoying it, then who cares?
Exactly. And it's more joyful off stage as well. You know,
Jeez,
like if you
I'm on the way.
go, I'm telling you, man, like comics in French will stay the whole show. And guess what? They'll listen to other comics, which is crazy. In English, like people will be in the back of the bar drinking, like getting high, like doing whatever, walking in and out. Like comics don't care as much. But in French, I feel like it's more supportive. It's more people will like, say, hey, you want to go write and stuff like that, And honestly, I'm saying this, but I also like both. I really love both. And I like the grittiness of the English scene because I like it. I like the fact that it's difficult. I like the fact that it really helps me test my jokes. If a joke gets a big laugh in English, I'm like, oh boy, wait till I bring it in French. Like the room is going to be on fire. Like, because these are jokes. Like they're good jokes then, Like, so it's like a testing ground for me also, like English. But I love both. I think it's in the end, it's just like you just show up as yourself, right? You just show up and you do what you can and you're just trying to adapt to like the room regardless of what language it is.
Hmm. I heard, you know, I have like issues with Segura's latest specials and his latest behavior and all that, but
Mhm.
he has done an hour in Spanish, and his family's Cuban, I think.
I think he is Peruvian.
Oh, are they? Oh, that might
Yeah.
be right. That might be
Yeah.
right. But you know, one of the things that I recall him saying was that it didn't really work until he started writing in Spanish and
Oh.
like not trying to translate jokes, but writing,
Mm.
having a completely different thing. And like you were just saying, you if you got a good joke, you can translate it to French. And I've heard you, I think you've done like some of your dating Wi-Fi stuff, like seems to move from language to language. So like
Yeah.
it seems like maybe you're just kind of translating the jokes. Are there some that you do in some languages and not in others, or how does that work?
Yeah. I thought this would be your first question because everyone asks me that when like I do comedy. Like, do you translate your jokes? And like I write in English. All my jokes, most of them, I just started writing in French if I have the thought in French. Because I think in the three languages, like day to day, like I just like if I have a thought in French, I will write it down in French. But most of the time I write in English because English is faster, I find. And you can make it more succinct. Like you can see the structure much better in English, at least for me. Like I can make shorter sentences in English, so it helps me. When it comes to translating jokes, I translate all my jokes. Like I think I have one joke that only works in English and not in French because it's a translation joke.
Mhm.
It's a joke that is about learning French when you're an Anglophone, and that's it. The other thing that I'll do is that I'll change words sometimes that's sound funnier in one language than the other. For instance, I have a joke that is like, I haven't had sex in a very long time. Last time I had sex, people were getting vaccinated. And in English, I'll say for polio. And in French, I'll say pour la tuberculose, which means for
Yeah.
tuberculosis, right? And to me, tuberculosis is a funnier word than polio. But for some reason, when I tried it like that in English, it didn't work. I think it's too long of a word or too like complicated or something. I don't know what it is. But polio is like more like, like, it hits better. However, in French, tuberculosis is like tuberculose is such like a weird sounding word that I think it has like something fun in it that makes it like funnier. But these are like, this is like comedy voodoo stuff that, like you get in your head. I don't know if it's true or not. I just, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, you're probably the world's forefront researcher in that particular phrase, but I do think that pour la tuberculose is kind of um, it's a nice collection of syllables, But
yeah,
I also think one thing that might be affecting it is just like the American sort of dim knowledge of history includes the polio vaccine.
that's the other thing is polio. I think people know. I need people to know that it's been eradicated, right? I need people to know that I'm talking about like a long time. So I use the reference that works the best. The other thing that I change, and I don't change it all that much, it's on another joke where it's just the way I do it in English is my girlfriend's French Canadian. but I still like her. That's the whole joke, which is like such like a stupid joke, but like whatever, it works. In French, sometimes I'll say my girlfriend is Anglophone because I play,
Sure.
the tension between the two. So I'm changing camps a little bit, but I'll do it both ways and it works both ways. But I feel like if I'm trying to get the crowd on my side, I'll be like, fuck the Anglophones, like, and it's like, I'm both, so like, I'm just playing to the crowd a little bit. Like I'm cheating there too.
Yeah, I'm reminded of that famous thing that Lindsey Graham,
Mhm.
advice that American Senator Lindsey Graham gave to, I think, Al Franken.
Mhm.
Al Franken was talking about going to Puerto Rico, and Lindsey Graham says, you hold two rallies, one for statehood and one against statehood. They never talk to each other.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, I think I mean, I've seen you perform that particular joke on video, but in like in front of people who just told you they're, like French Canadian, or one of them was French Canadian, and like everybody in the room is laughing. It's not like there's a cultural divide down the room where the Anglophones are like, yay, I mean, everybody's laughing.
No, yeah, absolutely. And people know that I love my girlfriend, and I love both languages, and I obviously have an accent, and I'll do jokes about like they like me by that point to know that none of the people that I'm hating on the joke I actually hate. So like they like it's just I'm teasing. And
Yeah.
they like that. They like to be teased. So yeah. I wanted to say something else, but I forgot about the whole like translating and stuff like that. Sorry. Keep
No
going.
worries. Well, especially if you've built a little bit of rapport, that helps let people come along with you a little bit. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
so so it sounds like you kind of agree. Like if there's somebody who's, feels like they're funny, but they want to start doing shows in other languages, your advice would be do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do it. And comedy is already hard enough. Like, and if anything, honestly, and I see this a lot from the English side comics. I have a friend, his name is Trevor Thompson. He's an Ontario comic who moved to Montreal, and he's a francophile. He's always spoke French, but he speaks with an accent and stuff. But like we can understand him very well. And he started doing comedy in French because there's more opportunity and more money in French here. And I just love watching him perform in French because I want to hear his perspective as an Anglophone in Montreal with a French crowd. I want to see how they react to him. Like I just love seeing that. So, and his French is getting better as well. That's the other thing. It's forcing him to be like, I need to, get better. So you're learning another language. It's so valuable to like speak multiple languages. Like you get to meet so many people. You get to, like read books in different languages, watch movies in different languages. Like it's such a powerful tool to speak different languages. And when you can do comedy in different languages, it opens up so many doors, for unpaid shows. So yeah, it's just like you can do it more, you know?
I don't know if that was meant to be a joke, but it really sounded
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, it was obviously drink tickets, man. They translate.
Uh, well, yeah, well, I'll be paying you an exposure for this as well. So, thanks for that. Uh,
Sure, man.
dude, I really appreciate the time. I
Hey,
mean, I
man.
had a sense that of what your response was going to be, but you're the only person I know who does comedy in three languages. I'm gonna brush up on my French and come to Montreal, and I want to experience some of these shows where people actually give a shit.
Dude, come by anytime, and if you need a place to crash, I have a couch right here, and as you know, I have a TV in the back. So
Okay.
anytime, man, for real. Yeah.
Thanks again to Alvaro. Thanks to you for watching. Thanks everybody. Thank you patrons. Thank you. Just thank you everybody. Thank you. If you're wondering whether you're thanked, you're thanked. Thank you. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, like and subscribe, and maybe jump on the Patreon if you want to help me make more. And if you want to talk about comedy writing with people who are trying to do it in a constructive way, we also have a Discord channel.